Hello, everyone. Welcome back again. And thank you for joining me again for another session on grammar. My name is Miss Electoli and a faculty of English at Edufy Institute. Today, I'm going to talk about a very important topic that is part of the parts of speech, and that is the topic noun. So, what is a noun? A noun is basically, I think we all know the basic definition of a noun, right? It's very specific, it's very to the point, and we all understand what a noun is. A noun is the names. Names of what? People, place, things, or animals. So we always consider, whenever you are asked about nouns, you always consider them as names. So names of anything will be considered as nouns. However, if you look at it grammatically, if we look at the gist of the details of grammar of noun, we will understand that there are various parts of nouns. There are various types of nouns. And also the rules that accompanies these types of nouns are also in detail. So we will have to look at that also. So let's go to the types of nouns. What are types of nouns? Now, there will be names, there will be specific names given to something. That is what we consider nouns, right? But what are the different types of nouns? We have proper noun, we have common noun, we have collective noun, abstract noun, and material nouns. Materialistic or material nouns. So first thing is proper noun. What is a proper noun? Names. Specific names of something or someone. So if you are naming a specific thing or person or place, then it will be considered as a proper noun. For example, you have a name like John. John is a proper noun. Again, specific place. Let's say Dimapur, let's say Nagaland, let's say Delhi, let's say India, or even USA. All have specific names, and these are specific names of specific places. If I say Edufy Institute, again, name of a specific place, so therefore it is a proper noun. Now let's move on to common noun. Common nouns are basically commonly used names. Names that have been used commonly to specify a specific group of people or group of nouns, and that is common noun. For example, boys, chairs, girls, these are the common names that we basically use. So what we find here is, if I say the word boys, it's not specific. It's very common. That means if I say boys, it is a generalized term that we use to specify the male of this generation or male population, right? So that is what we call as common noun. Next we have collective noun. Collective nouns are the collection of some people or things. So a collection of some people or things, can you name them? Army, let's say herd. A collection of cows, you will always understand that as a herd, right? If you're talking about a collection of students, then we have class. So these are what we understand as collective nouns. If we look at this, these three things, a lot of people try to understand, but they get confused with common and collective noun. And that is, what is the difference between boys and army, or boys and class, right? Or boys and student, girls and students. So a lot of people, they confuse students or class with boys. So common and collective nouns is there is a lot of confusion when it comes to common and collective noun. So let's take a look at an example, a sentence. If I say that John is a soldier in the army. If you look at the sentence, what you will find is that there is a person called John who is a soldier in the army. So if you are asked to identify the nouns in this sentence, the different types of nouns in this sentence, first, the specific name. What is a specific name? Proper noun. So John is a proper noun. Now, next we have another noun, that is soldier. Soldier is a common name given to people who are in the army, or those who work in the defense, or in the, in the fighting or any kind of a defense of the country, right? There's a recruitment of a group of people, and the name given to the type of people is soldier. So John is a soldier. Soldier becomes a common noun, commonly used name. However, when we look at the word army here, this is also a noun, but this one is not a common noun, but it is a collective noun. Why? Because it is a collection of these people. The army itself is not just talking about John, but it's talking about the collection of people that John is part of. So, if you look at the sentence, it's very clear what is the difference between the common and collective noun, right? So, this is how we deal with when we have nouns in a sentence. If you're ever confused, just understand that if it's referring to someone specific, then it's a proper noun. If it's referring to something that is a name commonly used by everyone, then it is a common noun. Then if we're talking about the collection of those group of people, then we have collective noun. Let's move on to the next one, which is abstract noun. Very important. What is an abstract noun? Abstract nouns do not have specific physical entity. That means you cannot touch an abstract noun. For example, if I say education, what is education? It's the name given to what we pursue, right? When we study and when we try to get a degree, that is the education that we're getting. When we're trying to enlighten ourselves, then that is what? Education. So, can you touch education? Can you go and take education from somewhere and keep it somewhere else? That's not possible. That means education itself does not have a physical entity. But we know the name that is given to that very thing, where we say that I am enlightening myself, I am giving myself knowledge or awareness, is called education. So therefore, that name will be understood as an abstract noun. So education is a noun, but it's not physical. That is neither proper nor common nor collective nor material. It is an abstract noun. That means it has no physical entity. So abstract nouns are basically names of those ideas or concepts that we have across us. Names of those concepts and ideas that does not have any physical entity will be considered as an abstract noun. If you look at the examples, happiness, sadness, can we touch happiness? Can you take someone's happiness away directly by snatching it from someone? Not possible, right? Because it does not have a physical entity. So therefore, we consider that as a abstract noun. Now let's move on to materialistic noun. Materialistic noun or material nouns means those nouns or those things that are used or that are named from materials that are making another noun. For example, if I say a wall is a noun talking about a physical entity, right? But then what is the wall made of? It's made of either bricks, wood, or cement, right? So wood, bricks, and cement are all materialistic noun. If a noun, let's say a chair, what is it made of? Steel, or leather, right? Or wood. So these three things are what? Material nouns. So whatever certain things that are made up of something, right? Nouns that are made up. Let's take an example of this board. This is made up of what? Plastic, some kind of electronic wires, right? So all those things, wires and plastic, will become materialistic noun. Now, when we talk about nouns, we also must consider some of the rules that come along with it. So, first rule of that very noun is when we talk about uncountable nouns. So, you might wonder what is uncountable nouns? Uncountable nouns are nouns that cannot be measured, that cannot be counted numerically. So, if you talk about uncountable nouns, you cannot count sugar, you cannot count the number of salt in your hand, right? If I gave you a handful of salt and asked you to count the particles, I believe that it's impossible to do so. Similarly, if I talk about water, if I give you a bottle of water, throw it in your hands and tell you where is how much or what is the amount of water that I just gave you, it'll be difficult for you to count them, right? So therefore, those are considered as uncountable nouns. So let's look forward at the rule. What is the rule? It states that we cannot measure uncountable nouns. Let's take an example of informations. Informations, this one, is something that cannot be counted, right? So therefore, this one becomes an uncountable nouns. We always use singular verb with uncountable nouns. Plural of these words do not exist. Even if we have this s at the end of the word, this is not plural. Whenever we have uncountable nouns, we will always consider them as singular. Therefore, the verb used with this will also be singular. And like they said, plural of these words do not exist. Next, let's take a look at some of the examples. What do I mean when I say plural of these words do not exist? Here, hair. You cannot write hair as hairs. It will be incorrect. Always you'll have to write hair, right? So this is called as uncountable nouns, and therefore the verb that you use, if you want to write hair are, it will be incorrect. But this is a plural verb, right? So if you're asked to write a sentence using the word hair, you can write her hair is thick, right? But I cannot write her hair are thick. Even though we're talking about hair as a huge number, it will be considered as an uncountable noun since we cannot count the number of hair on our head. So what do we see? Her hair is thick will be the correct answer, correct sentence. So like it said, two things that you must remember. Although we understand that uncountable nouns are not measurable, cannot be measured, and also we use singular verb with it, and they cannot be used in the plural form. That is, we cannot write them as hairs. Similarly, if you look at this sentence, let's take a look at this sentence, please. Children are prone to making mischiefs if they have nothing to do. Now, what is the uncountable noun in this sentence? It is mischief. Mischief is an abstract noun, okay? And it is uncountable. I believe we cannot count the amount of mischiefs that somebody does, right? So it is an uncountable noun. It's an abstract idea, something that you cannot touch, there's something that does not have a physical entity. So this is an uncountable noun which is abstract, and also this is written incorrectly. Although we are talking about a varied number of mischiefs that the children are doing, but here this one is written incorrectly. Like they said, plural of these words does not exist. So therefore, children are prone to making mischief will be the right answer and not mischiefs. Let's move on to the next part of the rule. That is rule number 2. If you look at this, there are some nouns which seems to be plural but are singular. That means they have s at the end, which signifies a plural word, right? But they are not so. They are considered as singular. And what are these? Mathematics, statistics, diseases such as measles, mumps, shingles, and rickets they all have s at the end of these words, right? But they are not plural, they are singular. And so therefore we must also consider them as singular verbs that comes along with singular verbs. So I cannot write mathematics are. Instead, I will have to write mathematics is. Because even though it has s at the end, it is singular in nature. Let's take a look at this example. News is coming on TV is the correct answer. A lot of times if people see news, that is s at the end, we consider them as plural, and a lot of people write are, news are, but that will be incorrect. News is written in the plural form but is considered as a singular noun, and therefore the verb accompanying it will also be singular. News is coming on TV. Rule number 3. If you take a look at this rule, it is stating that there are some nouns which to be singular but exist in plural. That means what we have to understand is there is a noun that is considered to be singular but exists in the plural form. And we also have to use the plural verb with it. Let's take a look at the examples. Words like children, infantry, polity, all seems like a singular word, singular noun, right? But in nature, they are plural. So therefore, what we will have to write? You will have to write a plural verb. Children is, when you look at children, it is talking about the collective group of people. So we might consider them as one entity that is singular. But if we understand the gist of it, it is talking about varied number of children, right? So therefore, you will have to use the plural verb with it. Infantry also. Infantry, gentry, polity, police, cattle, brethren, these are mostly collective nouns, and they are also understood as some of the confusion that relies with this is the fact that it is understood as plural. But when we look at the grammatical rule, it is to be used as a singular noun. Therefore, the verb should also be singular. Now, if you look at this, there was no gentry in the function. So, if we have gentry here, right, it's a collection of people. Even though it seems singular, it should be written in the plural form. Gentry is a noun that is used to talk about a group of gentlemen, okay? A group of gentlemen. So this seems like a plural noun, but it is actually this seems like a singular noun, but it is actually a plural noun. So therefore, what will we have? We will have the verb in the plural form. So therefore, what do we see? This is incorrect. Rather, we will have to replace it with what? Where. There were no gentry in the function. So, let's look at the second sentence again. Police has been deployed all over the route. Here, the error, can you find the error in the sentence? We have a collection of people that is police, right? And it should be considered as what? Plural. So, police has been deployed all over the route. So, what will we write? Have. It should be have. This one is the correct answer. If we look at this infantry also, it is talking about a troop, right? That means a group of soldiers. If it is talking about infantry, basically soldiers that are on foot, right? So if you have this, we will also write the plural verb infantry are or were, not is or was, because it is considered as a plural noun, so therefore the verb will also be plural. Let's look at rule number 4. You will always understand this as very important because there are some nouns which is to be plural. They also exist in form but cannot be converted into the singular form. Very important. Some nouns, we always understand that all of the nouns, if you add s to it, will be plural, right? But there are some nouns that you cannot add s into it and then turn it into the plural form. Or there are some nouns that have plural form, but they cannot be converted into the singular form. So, let's take a look at this example. A pair of spectacles have been bought by me. Is this correct? Spectacles is a singular, even though it has s in it and will be considered as plural, but in this case, in the grammatical sense, this is incorrect. That means, yes, spectacles is the correct usage of the word, but it is not a plural noun, it is a singular noun. So therefore, the verb here will be singular again. Let's take a look at this example. Always use singular verb with them until they have specific numerical numbers added to them. That means if I have scissors, even though it has s at the end, I will not consider it a plural until and unless I have a number along with it. For example, scissors has S in it, so I will consider this again as a singular noun. Trousers, singular noun. Jeans, singular noun. But if I say two scissors, this one will have a plural verb. But if I just have the word scissors, then I will have a singular verb along with it. So that means the verbs that I use changes with the usage of the nouns. That is, even though it has s in it, it will be considered as singular only if I have a numerical added to it, then it will be considered with plural verbs. Let's take a look at this example. Remains also. We always see this and consider that as a plural plural noun, right? But it is actually a singular noun. Only if I say multiple remains, then you will have to write what? Plural verb there. If you look at this, evidence also. All the evidences were against and he was held guilty. Evidences is incorrect usage of the word evidence, okay? If you are writing evidence, it will always come in the singular form. All the evidence were against him and he was guilty. So it should be written as evidence and not evidences. If we look at the next rule, after we understand this, the usage of plural and the singular form, the usage of singular verb and the plural verb with the various forms of nouns, we will understand that there are various rules that comes with nouns. Not just the fact that it is the name given to specific thing or place or animal, right? So if you remember these things, it will be very easy for you to understand the concept of sentences. Why do I write certain verbs with this type of nouns? And this is very important to understand when we deal with subject and verb agreement, because a lot of times the subjects are either abstract nouns or proper nouns, common nouns, or collective nouns. So if we remember this concept and these rules, it will be easier for you to understand subject and verb agreement also. So please keep on following us for more such interesting contents. Till then, have a good time. Thank you.